Okay, so you are a founder in the matchmaking business.
I
Tell me
am
more.
indeed. I am indeed. Yes. Well, I actually started out my career in learning and development at a group of hospitals.
Yeah.
And I'm also really obsessed with measuring things. So I wanted to see what is the impact? Are we actually gaining knowledge with people? Are they doing better in their career and so on? And I found through measuring that a really good match of mentor and mentee or learning group made like a tremendous difference. It was dramatically different. So I got really hooked on matchmaking, and I will confess the first version of our platform was largely based on OkCupid back in the day, eHarmony. We figured out that, okay, there's got to be some principles here for what makes chemistry.
Yes.
And that's how we got started.
Wow. I feel like every corporation needs this.
Every corporation does need this.
Yes.
And networks, too. We do lots of work with networks, incubators, and so on because, you know, people do find each other, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you're looking for right now, that inspiration or that piece of knowledge that you need, is a little bit of a needle in a haystack. And so being able to pull out that person at that moment can be extremely foundational for people.
I love that. What is a good example of a match?
A great example of a match might be, for example, myself running a business. So when I was a corporate person, I came from corporate. When I decided to jump out on my own, I was so fortunate to find a great mentor.
Yeah.
And what she did for me was, first of all, normalize my experience because it's lonely, it's difficult, it was so different. So having someone say, hey, you know what, you're on the right track. It's kind of supposed to feel this way. And also, oh, hey, by the way, there's a pothole there. You can't see it, but you're about to fall in it.
Yes.
That was a tremendous match for me because it enabled me to see things I couldn't see.
Yeah.
It enabled me to feel inspired when I didn't feel inspired, feel less lonely.
Yeah.
So it gave me community. It really also, she was someone who had credibility with me to say, you're making a mistake. Or, hey, there's certain things about you that are going to make you a lot less successful. You need to work on yourself.
Yeah.
And that was huge. So someone who told me the truth, someone who was just ahead of me in terms of her journey, that made such a difference for me.
Yeah. So this is the second company that you founded. What are some lessons that you learned from your first company?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that was said by a speaker here today was, you know, when you're thinking about funding or finding partners, you've got to find people who are passionate about the same things that you are. And I think when I founded my first company, any money looked like good money.
Oh, yes.
Right? And the temptation to jump in with partners who just said yes was hugely prevalent. And then there was a lot of sort of ugly getting out of those situations eventually because there wasn't a fit. And the passion fizzled. And, you know, the moments of really feeling, yay, this is great, went away quickly when we didn't have that shared interest, that shared passion. So that was a huge learning for me is you really got to find your tribe. You got to find your people, and you got to find people who are in it for the longer term with you.
Yeah.
And not just go for, it's easy to get desperate. It's easy to get, you know, wooed by a good story or a need that you have. And partnership is not that. Partnership, you need to think about it like a marriage.
Yeah.
It's hard to get it out of.
It is hard to get out of. It's difficult when you're really passionate about your idea, you're bootstrapping it, you're starting to get to the point where you are desperate, and then there's an investor that comes in that's not a good fit, but you're in such a bind. I worry about those founders, those situations, because it's difficult to navigate. Really difficult to navigate.
It really is. It really is.
So your company now, the matchmaking business, what are some of the things that you look for?
Well, right now, of course, we look for clients.
Yeah.
Kind of goes without saying, always be closing.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for organizations that actually realize either if they're a network and they have, you know, maybe an association and they have lots of members, and they realize that there's tremendous value to connecting people. Or within organizations, that there's just tremendous value in bringing people together. And if they understand that the combination of knowledge transfer and social support is a magic combination, that's a great find for me. Someone who is not just, well, the board said we should have a program, so we're checking a box, we're getting a program, but someone who sees that this is actually part of the strategy, it's part of change, it's part of growing people. It really is helpful when embracing diversity and inclusion. Because there's nothing more powerful than bringing people together to help people break down barriers. If I get to know you personally, it's really hard for me not to see that, wow, okay, everyone has some implicit bias. How am I overcoming my implicit bias? So I'm looking for those organizations that have a vision that bringing people together is part of their story and part of the solution. And everybody says, you know, we realize that people are important, but do you really? And are we past that point of thinking that, you know, people are just here to do a job? You know, we want to get to know the whole person. Mentorship is about developing the whole person. It's about really helping people to learn to think. It's about supporting people in their lowest and highest moments. And organizations have to buy into that to make it happen.
Absolutely. I always thought creativity and then having like an executive mindset was a this or that situation. And it's fun discovering that it really is a this and that situation. It's a matter of where do you fall on the meter, not being too extreme either way, but having that balance. How do you help people find more balance in this space? Because obviously you're dealing with investors, you're dealing with entrepreneurs, you're dealing with creatives. How do you find that balance when you're matching them?
I love that question. And first of all, we've worked really hard to create a matching algorithm that predicts. So there's a psychometric piece of it. So it will predict how well we might do together. And so it takes away a lot of that, you know, worry about, is this a good fit? It should be a good fit. You know, nothing's ever perfect, but we're pretty good. So we get good fits. I think the other thing that, you know, in terms of finding balance that mentorship does and what we really try to do on our programs is we try to help people get to trust quickly, A, by doing a really good job of matching and then doing a little bit of preparation that they can do themselves to get ready. Because what we don't want is people to feel performative. So, you know, you're a celebrity. If I'm matched with you and you know, you're an executive, I might feel like I got to get into that partnership and perform and, you know, really, you know, show a different side of myself than who I really am. What we're looking for, and I think this brings great balance to people, is building self-awareness, but from our authentic selves. As opposed to it's another boss that I got to impress. Can I show up as my real self and be vulnerable? And even the mentor being vulnerable to say, hey, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. A good mentor is not an advice dispensing machine. A good mentor is able to help you think things through. And it's okay to say, I don't know, but let's see if we can discover it together.
So to simplify this business, right, is there a component that is like a questionnaire? Is it more of a, so how many questions? And it's the technology that basically assesses everything, correct?
That's right.
That's really cool.
Well, and so we have it in two parts. We try to keep it, you know, as I learned early on in my career that the people will only sit for so long. So it's comprehensive, but you could do it in 20 minutes. And it's really what I would call a psychographic, because it's going to talk a little bit about how you learn, what your style is, what your preferences are, but also who you are, what your life experiences are, what your goals are. Maybe a little bit about your interests. Back to the eHarmony for I love corporations,
so
right?
Fun.
Is that can we find enough similarity that we have something to build on, somewhere to go to get started.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. Very cool.
Thank you for your time.
Very cool.
It was great chatting with you.
It's great chatting with you.
Yeah.